Hello and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. Well, Backlash and the greatest wrestling match ever, so they say, is in the rear view. Now we hurtle towards Extreme Rules. And oh, by the way, somebody who was in the crowd at the Performance Center just tested positive for COVID, which means that whole crowd thing probably won't last for too much longer. Anyway, Raw opens up this week with Randy Orton talking about having won the greatest wrestling match ever, therefore making himself the greatest wrestler ever. I knew he was going to be doing that. He thanks Edge for reminding him what it feels like to be the legend killer again. He says, hey, I hear you'll be cleared of your injury in July of 2029. See you in 9 years, waka waka. But then Christian shows up to defend Edge's honor, calls Orton a son of a bitch. Orton says that Christian knows what he wants. He wants one more match, so he challenged him not just to a regular match, but an unsanctioned match later in the night, gives him to the end of the night to make his decision. But if he declines the offer, then he's just going to know that Christian's a coward, so Christian has to do a big think on that one for a bit. I thought that was really interesting. They're going to go that route and even open up the possibility of Christian in a match again, and so we'll see how that develops as the night goes on. We see Angel Garza and Zelina Vega backstage, and they both deny that Angel was in any way responsible for Andrade losing the U.S. title match to Apollo Crews on Sunday. Angel says he will beat Kevin Owens once again. Andrade comes into the shot and wishes Angel good luck tonight, but in that real snide way where he really doesn't mean it. On to the next match we go, where Angel takes on Kevin Owens in the match. As the match begins, though, Andrade makes his way to ringside and just immediately causes more tension between he and Angel and Zelina. The two guys are arguing, and that leads to Zelina to leave. She leaves the ringside area before the commercial break. We see Andrade get on the apron to distract the referee, and that allows Kevin to hit the stunner to beat Angel, and that's that. More bickering between Angel and Andrade as Zelina makes her way back out to ringside and says, the two are fighting over the same thing. Enough of this. She calms them down and tells them to go to the back. So how long will it be, or how shortly will it be, until this once prominent stable, where there was 4 people in it and they were all over Raw the last couple of weeks, is now on the verge of collapse? MVP and Bobby Lashley come to the ring to address what happened at Backlash. MVP says that Drew McIntyre had the gall to capitalize on Lashley's moment of weakness when Lana got on the apron and distracted everyone. If it wasn't for Lana, MVP says, Lashley would be the champion right now. Lana shows up and says, everything between me and my Bobby was fine and hunky-dory until you came along. MVP calls her a thought and says, everything here is your fault. You're the reason Lashley is not doing so well right now. And Lashley looks just very uncomfortable. I can't tell if he's uncomfortable or very upset. The body language couldn't quite tell, but as MVP and Lana are fighting, Lashley jumps in and agrees with MVP, saying, Lana, everything that's been going wrong has been your fault, and you want to post our sex life on social media. What are you doing? And Lana goes, wow, you're delusional. I should have slept with someone way more famous than you. And then Lashley says he wants a divorce. So we didn't wait very long. There was no build up between Backlash and the divorce claim. We just went bam right into it. And after weeks of seeing Lana backstage making the strangest noises and screams over really nothing at all, in the ring there, then she decides to be silent. We get a recap of the bizarre cinematic brawl between the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders at Backlash. Then we see the 4 of them together backstage just yucking it up, talking about the Viking Profits and their pending film franchise and all the different forms of synergy within. Then we see Akira Tozawa and the Ninjas return, along with the super giant ninja, who, by the way, is Jordan Amagbian, Performance Center recruit. He's 7'3", a former basketball star, if there was any guess about his former profession. So after that encounter backstage, we go to an 8-man tag team match as the Ninjas take on the Viking Profits. The 3 masked ninja goons who aren't Akira get taken out in pretty short order. Akira summons the Chungus back into the ring. The 4 lads put their heads together. Montez raises the solo cup to spontaneously summon the Big Show. Apparently that's all it takes. So the Big Show helps the baby faces clear the ring. Tozawa and Chungus escape, and so we're not done yet with this confrontation between the two sides. But yeah, weird seeing Big Show on this night, and just the fact that it was so like, oh, here's this thing that comes out of nowhere, and then the Big Show shows up. That was a bit of a weird disconnect for me. Up next, Seth Rollins is in the ring to address the Mysterios. He offers Rey and Dominick a chance to come to Raw this week so he can give them a hero's welcome and everything, but Rey can't be there. Dominick, though, accepts the challenge, and so then we see Rey on the big screen, though, confronting Seth, warning Seth not to hurt Dominick, and Seth basically says, if you guys aren't a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem, and if, Dominick is going to be putting up a fight, then we have to take him out. As he gets on his knees and he talks more to Rey, in sneaks in Dominick Mysterio, and kudos to the fans for not giving it away, because normally when there's a wrestler who does like a sneak attack behind someone in the ring, you hear the crowd, you hear the pop and everything. Not so. This was a very smart crowd. They allowed Dominick to get the jump on Seth, and so then he fights Seth for a bit. In come Austin Theory and Murphy, and they basically try to run after Dominick as he bolts his way through the crowd and escapes. I've been really liking these segments so far with Rey and now Dominick and Seth Rollins. I thought the weird turn they went after Money in the Bank when Seth like gouged out Rey's eye was like particularly dark, but I think the way they're kind of like telling the story here, the more unhinged, the quiet violence of the Messiah, Seth Rollins, I think it's been working really well here. And finally, we're gonna pull the trigger on Dominick Mysterio in-ring debut. Finally, they've been waiting. You can tell they've been wanting to do this for a long time. There's been a lot of stop and starts with this storyline with Rey. And so now we're finally seemingly going to get it here. So that can be very exciting, very interesting. Backstage, R-Truth encounters MVP and Lashley. He's his usual wacky self, which pisses off the two heels. And then after the commercial break, we see Truth producing his partner for the evening, the champion, Drew McIntyre. And some words are exchanged. MVP challenges Drew and Truth to put both their respective championships on the line in a winner-take-all match. Truth accepts on Drew's behalf, and Drew is none too pleased about that. And then later on, we find out that Truth, he goes to talk to the brass and everything, and he basically makes things harder for Drew by saying, okay, just one belt's going to be on the line in the tag team match. It's going to be your championship. And Drew is none too pleased about it. Up next, Natalya and Liv Morgan taking on the Iconics. It's a pretty short match here. Morgan has the match won, but the referee is distracted. The Iconics take out Morgan with their double team finisher to win the match. Poor Liv Morgan, what has happened to her? I mean, God, you can just chart her progress or lack thereof from the end of last year when she walked in on the Lana Lashley wedding. That really sputtered out and went nowhere, and then Liv's been trying to rebuild herself, get this momentum on her side, loses to Charlotte, loses a lot of that momentum in the process, and here she is in this random tag team match with no build, and she's the one taking the fall. You gotta feel for her there. But then after the match, the Iconics get on the mic and call out the tag team champions, Sasha Banks and Bayley, to a title match here tonight. They don't respond, but they say, well, we're just gonna make that match for next week then. And so, will it be made so? We're gonna find out. Backstage, the Big Show talks to Christian. By the way, I love all these little backstage bits with Christian in the locker room, and behind him there's a poster of a WWE 2K19 cover. I guess they don't want to promote 2K20, God forbid. So anyway, Show talks to Christian here and warns him how dangerous Orton can be in an unsanctioned match, and tells him you can either just step back or get in the ring and shut Randy's mouth. Christian knows what he must do. Elsewhere backstage, we see an argument between Natalya and Liv Morgan, and Natalya chews Morgan out for making rookie mistakes. Morgan just leaves. Natalya talks to no one in particular about how no one respects her anymore in the women's division. And then elsewhere from behind, in comes Lana, who's like, man, I know how you feel. I've had a pretty rough night. And then Natalya empathizes with Lana in the midst of all this. Are we getting a new dream team in the works here? Christian has wandered back onto the stage, and Charlie Caruso meets him there for an interview. I wonder how long he was going to stand there if Charlie didn't meet him there. Anyway, she asks if he's made up his mind. Christian says, I have nothing left to prove in my career, but I will not be disrespected. So he takes off his coat and he accepts the match. So Christian's going to have his first match on Raw, or on WWE TV period, in over 6 years, which honestly, it feels like it's been longer, but I'm excited for it. We'll see what happens. Backstage, MVP talks to Apollo Crews and says there's a difference between a fighting champion and a smart champion. Does his usual shtick where he offers to be Apollo's manager. Apollo says no, and then MVP warns him, saying, the only way you're going to keep this championship is with me in your corner. Possible telegraphing a Bobby Lashley program at some point in the future. And then, for the first time tonight, we see Ric Flair, who's just chatting up with Charlotte, saying, what's your next step? Charlotte goes, I do what I want. Woo! And that's the end of that segment, and I thought, wow, what a great use of Ric Flair, but it turns out we're not done seeing him tonight. Apollo Crews taking on Shelton Benjamin up next. Little pre-match picture-in-picture promo with Shelton here where he says, you should have taken MVP's offer to let him manage you, and you better hope that offer's still on the table once I beat you here tonight. Pretty short match here. Benjamin tries to win the match by rolling up and getting his feet on the ropes. The referee catches it, but then right afterward, Crews rolls Benjamin up and puts his arm on the ropes to get the leverage and win the match. Not much to say about the match itself, except you can see Apollo apparently toughening up, getting a little stronger, a little grittier when he's in the ring, kind of winning at any cost. That's the big takeaway I got from this match. They replay the same hype package for Nia Jax and Asuka they did the pay-per-view, and then we see a backstage interview with Asuka where she speaks mostly in Japanese and saying at the end, Nia Jax started this fight, Asuka will finish it. Then elsewhere backstage, we see the Viking Prophets and the Big Show just hanging out. Again, Big Show is just, he's floating around. He's saying hi to everybody at this point. And man, how are we going to settle this anything you can do, we can do better rivalry? Gosh, it's in a dead heat. And the Big Show wisely says, how about you guys have a title match next week? So the match we were supposed to get on Sunday. What a brilliant idea. In what was originally a regular tag team match turned winner take all, turned just the WWE title on the line, Drew McIntyre and R-Truth defend the championship against the team of Bobby Lashley and MVP. This match, not nearly on the level of what we saw between Drew and Lashley at Backlash, but still the story is good. The story here being, Truth is causing some problems early on and Drew has to deal with it and overcome them. In the end, Drew hits MVP with the Claymore, but instead of going for the pin, he tags in R-Truth, who then he launches Truth off the top rope onto MVP with a splash, and that's how the good guys win here. Pretty solid match. Nice little moment in the sun for R-Truth here, who's been kind of he's been in the background, in the periphery for a long time, doing the comedy shtick with a 24/7 title. Not sure how long this association is going to last, but him getting the rub from the champion like this, I think is good for R-Truth. The tag champs Bayley and Sasha Banks make their way to the ring to celebrate Bayley's birthday, and the champ announced it's going to be a whole birthday week, including NXT and SmackDown. Sasha's talking about the Iconics challenge from earlier, when sure enough, the Iconics reappear, and they double down, saying, Sasha and Bayley says they're the better team, but then the Iconics reiterate that they beat Sasha and Bayley for the tag titles at last year's WrestleMania, prompting the two former champs to go into their own individual breakdowns. Then Peyton slaps Sasha in the face. Bayley is pissed and accepts the challenge for her and Sasha for next week. I don't know what you say about the segment itself, but I like the fact that lately with title match challenges, it's not just the challenger going, I challenge you to a match, and boom, the match is made. Now we're seeing some kind of follow-up to it in a lot of cases where you'll see the other side and then we get that response and everything. And I liked that. I liked that it's not just, I challenged you to the match and it's automatically official. We see the other side being confronted by that and then responding to it. I like how they do that here too. Asuka once again defending the Raw Women's title against Nia Jax. They had a match at Backlash on Sunday, but it ended in a double countout. Early in the match, Nia Jax powerbombs the fuck out of Asuka on the floor. That looked really snug just before commercial break. The match ends, and I will say the match is much better on the whole, just from beginning to end, than what we saw on Sunday in my opinion. Match ends when Nia hits a Samoan drop onto Asuka, whose foot is under the ropes, and Nia doesn't like that. She shoves referee John Cone, who makes the big, I'm going to make a big scene of this. I'm going to deliberately and slowly walk to the corner to look right in the timekeeper's eyes, make that solid eye contact, and then I'm going to disqualify you. But in the process of all doing that, Asuka rolls up Nia, and she ends up winning the match after John Cone does a bit of a fast count. So we get some controversy here. So now, twice on this show, we have had the heels lose after the babyface gets some kind of assistance. Apollo beats Shelton Benjamin after grabbing the ropes. And then in this case, Asuka gets a bit of a help from John Cone, who's a bit of a fast count because he's mad at Nia. So we get some controversy here. I wonder if these two were meant to be on the same show, if there's meant to be a thread there, or it's just kind of lazy booking in that respect. I'm guessing this one's going to have more fallout with Nia's going to maybe confront the referee or something, but there definitely seems to be some controversy. Will Nia have a legitimate gripe and a bone to pick for another championship match down the line? Time will tell. Randy Orton interviewed backstage. He acknowledges that Christian is a legend, and he says, of course, him being the legend killer, then he is going to kill Christian's legend in the unsanctioned match. We go to that match right now. Orton versus Christian. It's 2011 all over again. Christian makes his way down to the ring. Orton's there. I love how we get, again, the unsanctioned match gets an official referee and the full entrances and the whole kit and caboodle. Before the match begins, Ric Flair shows up. We've been seeing him a few times tonight. He talks to Charlotte backstage. We also see him later on trying to talk some sense into Christian, who's having none of it. So here we see him again, once again saying to Christian, you shouldn't do this. Don't be involved. Just walk away. But Christian says no. The match begins. Flair with a low blow hits Christian right in the yam bags. That allows Orton to punt Christian in a fantastic, scary looking sell by Christian, where he just goes totally limp. Orton gingerly rolls Christian over, pins him, and wins. So very little physicality on the part of Christian here, not much that he had to do. So after the match, then we see Orton kind of going back and forth for a couple of minutes between being really sincere and apologetic and like quiet and scared to being like angry and accusatory and blaming Christian. This is all your fault. He's literally, it's coming in waves as the EMTs check on Christian, and like Orton's a very caring, you need to make sure he's okay. Like he's, putting his hand in the arms of the EMTs, take care of him. And then as he's apologizing, he just gets more whipped up into a froth and says, it's all your fault that I'm doing this, but I'm sorry. Like really interesting stuff we're seeing Orton portray here, just from like Rumble onward, the way he's been portraying this just conflicted psychopath character and bringing back the Legend Killer in this way. I think it's like people have been wanting the Legend Killer to return for a long time, I feel, and now we're finally getting that in this really unique spin, and I absolutely love what they're doing here. This whole thread with Orton and Christian throughout the night, I think was really well done as we fade to black. My grade for this week's Raw is a B. I like a lot of what we saw in this show. They covered a lot of ground. They had a lot of interesting threads start to form and continue from Backlash onward that makes me want to see what's going to happen next week on Raw. We saw some interesting twists with Christian getting involved once again. He and Flair both getting physically involved in the match. It's 2009 all over again. And the big show too. My God. I liked what they did with Lashley and MVP and Lana this week. Again, there's a lot of interesting things. Some things I didn't like about this show, as I'll list it here in the pros and cons. But I think that on the whole, this was a pretty good post-pay-per-view Raw, which has whet my appetite for what's going to happen in the next couple weeks. But let me know what you thought about Raw this week in the comment section below. And as always, stay tuned for later this week when I have my review of AEW and NXT on Wednesday Warfare. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.